So as we go through our discussion, I'm going to be doing obviously some more tax returns and some more building credibility off the tax returns. But if you guys didn't know about some of the webinars that we've been doing and are archiving and recording, this particular webinar, it's called A Golden Opportunity to Roth Convert and Rebalance. This particular webinar is all about taxes, and it educates your excuse me, it educates your clients about taxes. So you're going to have the ability of, first of all, it's going to be on the advisor website, which you'll all have access to. But you're also going to have the ability to replay these webinars hosted by you as live events that will help you guys gain credibility. But a lot of the, sort of baseline information about how taxes work and, marginal taxes versus capital gains taxes, are going to be on these workshops. So we have a ton of workshops, and we're recording more every single week for you guys. I mean, really, we're super excited about how we're able to get to people to give them education without having to do a ton of work. Because once something's recorded, we can send it out, play it as a live event. It really seems like it's coming from you, and you could do a Q&A before or after kind of deal, and it'll bring you guys really, really good backup data other than just you saying stuff. So every recorded workshop is either me and or somebody else. Sometimes we do them in pairs. But if you guys want to do one of these workshops for us, or I should say with us, just let us know what topic you're comfortable with that you would like to do, and we'll do a recording, and we can drive traffic from your database or your centers of influence or your existing clients or your prospects. We can drive all the traffic here, and I can't tell you, we've been getting calls and emails every single day requesting meetings because they just heard something on a webinar that they want to talk more about or are interested in or whatever it is. All right, so don't, definitely use our resources because we're doing these for you. I mean, if I didn't care, then all I would do is I wouldn't record them. I would just do the live events for our clients and not include anybody else. But this library that we're amassing is going to be very powerful. And like I said, the resources that we're putting in and our team is driving to the marketing piece of this is going to be really, really useful for many, hopefully many years moving forward. But I wanted to, we were talking about some different tax returns and how to build credibility off the tax returns, how to read the tax returns. Taxes are going to be the hot topic for at least probably until 2025. And then, we'll see what happens and what changes actually come down the pike, and then we'll revamp everything and of course, update and make it timely once again. But I don't think there's going to be too many people that are going to argue. And in fact, I did have some people once in a while that would argue with me before that, they don't think taxes are going to go up. Well, I don't think anybody's going to argue with us anymore that taxes are going to go up. So if they want to argue with us about taxes going up, that is probably a gigantic weed check that you need to fire that person and move on to somebody else that is, not just logical, but is more, realistic. But, as I go through these returns, I really feel like it's a tremendous, tremendous service that we're doing, spending just a couple minutes educating our clients about how taxes work. Remember, when we talk about it, it's one of the three things that we can control. So we talk about it in the training, and we also talk about it in the webinars. But one of the reasons why people have anxiety and apprehension are because they feel out of control. They feel like they're helpless and they don't have any control over anything. And that's because so much of their time has been spent on talking about performance. Right? So I'm not going to go back to the PowerPoint right now. But remember, we talk about 90% of people really are focusing on performance, and they don't have any control. So let's focus on something we do, which is taxes. And let's help make people feel much, much better. Let's build credibility for yourself and have a little bit of fun doing it. All right? This is a couple, husband and wife, and $123,000 of W-2. So this is a combined W-2. So, they're not huge income earners, right? Taxable refunds. So they are getting a huge refund back. In this case, a little bit of capital gain here. Normally, I wouldn't be able to tell where the capital gain is coming from, but I can tell where it's coming from because there's dividends. So when you see a combination of dividends and capital gains, in this type of proportion, it just means they own mutual funds, right? We know in general about that. Now here's the interesting one, right? Real estate, partnerships, S corporations, and trusts. I'd say 80, 90% of the time, this is real estate. 10 or 20% of the time, it's an S corp or a partnership. It's almost never trusts, right? So this is a pretty decent chunk that they're getting income-wise. What does that tell us, right? When we see rental, real estate, royalties, partnership, S corp. Let me see if there's a second page to this. There is. And again, this is not a current tax return. This is a couple years ago, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of taking you through it. These guys still have enough itemized deductions to go beyond the standard deduction, so that's why they're probably getting such a big refund back. And I'm going to go back in a second. Let's see here. Federal taxes, estimated taxes, overpaid. Yep, so they overpaid a bunch of money in estimated taxes. So here's what's happening. This is probably coming from real estate. And in this particular case, the client has probably owned real estate for a long time, and they're either getting a positive cash flow from the real estate or their depreciation schedule is done. So you can ask them. You can say to them. I mean, it's, like I said, I'll use the poker hand analogy again. It's kind of cool. It's like reading a poker hand blind. I can say to them, so you own rental real estate because I know this, and you can say to them, so tell me, are you getting a positive cash flow that's pretty significant each month of a couple $1,000s or more, or is your depreciation has your depreciation run out, right? And just the fact that that one of those two things is happening, again, it will lead to a ton of credibility because you're going to be able to ask them questions that are relevant, and they'll like that. Okay, so these guys are in a really pretty good tax situation right now. I mean, with their deductions and everything else. Their taxable income is about $110,000 as a married couple. Let's see here if I can go to my tax tables. Oh, by the way, I do have these other tax tables. I wanted to pull them up real quick. TIA-CREF has a reference guide, and I just Googled, I don't remember if I went over this with you guys before, but I just Googled 2020 tax reference guide, and 20 different companies came up. And I really like this one, and I've talked about this particular reference guide in webinars that we've done, but you not only have the marginal tax brackets on here, but you've got the trust and estates bracket, you've got the Social Security wage bases on here, which are always good points of conversation. You've got Medicare on here, the limits for that, long-term care. You've got the estate and gift tax exemptions. You've got the maximum Social Security things on here. You have HSAs, IRA, Roth IRA, regular contribution limits for SEP IRAs, salary deferrals, other things like that. The uniform tables for required RMDs are on here. I mean, this has got everything. I mean, this is just really great. It's got everything you need on here. So you can Google it and pull up your own tax guide, or you can just use the tax guide that's on the calculators. I don't update my calculators too often. A lot of people complain, oh, why aren't your calculators updated? The ones that you guys have access to should be updated at least within the last year or two. The reason why it doesn't matter to me if I pull up my calculators is because, like, even my random return calculator, it's 2014. It hasn't been updated since 2014. The reason why is because when I talk to clients about these types of things, we're talking about philosophical. We're talking about the mechanics of how money works. We're talking about tax strategies. We don't need to get necessarily into the exact data, to the dollar of these ideas. And in fact, if I would suggest to you guys, if you are getting into the exact dollar data types of problems, you got to be careful, because if you live by the number, you're going to die by that number, right? If your number is ever off by a dollar or two, or you make a recommendation that says, hey, specifically, Roth convert $234,632, and they've miscalculated their deductions, or a number of things that can go wrong that can prove you wrong. I don't ever want to be in a position where somebody can prove me wrong, right? I want to be in a position where my ideas and strategies are always right, and so that's why I'm usually talking about it conceptually and through generalizations rather than specifics. I'm going to talk about certainly how taxes work, and I'm going to say to somebody, well, gee, if you're making 100,000, let's go back to this tax return that we have right here. If you're making $100,000 of taxable income right now, based upon the tax tables, you're in roughly the 22% bracket, and we know this 22% bracket is going to be going up. And when I projected your income, I showed that you're not going to be going into a lower bracket. You're not going to be going to the 12% bracket. You'll be staying here, and this is going up. So we need to talk about Roth converting and tax harvesting and tax sheltering strategies. All right. Reading off the tax return is all going to bring us back to being able to talk to people about tax strategy and focusing them on an idea that's going to save them a ton of money or make them a ton of money that's got nothing to do with performance. And that's where our value add comes in, and that's what makes us different. And clients will know that and understand it and appreciate it. It's not complicated stuff, right? So how do we tax harvest? Well, you've got $100,000 of taxable income. You can make $1.65. So let's start Roth converting $65,000 a year, right? And so the first part of the discussion on the Roth conversion is what we just talked about, is the tax harvesting amount. But what I would like to do, I would like to Roth convert this guy up to 315, because I don't think there's much of a difference between 22 and 24, and I think both of these are probably going to go to 26, 28% or higher, right? And this is just Fed, not including state. So I'm going to make the argument that, hey, they should just be Roth converting 65. I think they should be Roth converting 215. And they're going to be like, wow, that sounds pretty aggressive, right? Well, that $215,000 of Roth conversion, they might only owe an extra, $30,000 or $40,000 in taxes. Man, if I can Roth convert 215 and only owe 30 or 40 of taxes, that's pretty amazing. And then I do the Roth conversion, and if I can get my money into a Roth now, pay the 30 or 40 in taxes, and got 215. And remember, there's no RMDs. And I'm just going back and forth between the calculators and stuff just to show you guys how to have these conversations, right? Let's say we'll do it for 20 years because there's no RMDs. Now we got a Roth. That 215 turns into 700 almost, and it's tax-free, right? That's how we turn a tax discussion on a tax return into a strategy. Tax harvest versus conversion. And by converting now, if the taxes go up to 30% or whatever they're going to go up to in the future, it's not going to matter to this client. Triple tax-free, right? Tax-free to you, tax-free to your spouse, tax-free to your kids or your estate. Triple tax-free. And by the way, the Roth is also one of the only things that you can leave to a trust and have the trust cash in the Roth and not pay taxes, right? No other retirement account. 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple plans, defined contributions. If you leave the beneficiary as your estate, which some people do, and it's a huge mistake, right? They got to cash in those retirement accounts and pay taxes all at once. If accidentally you leave your Roth IRA to your estate or leave no beneficiary at all, it's not going to be taxable regardless. Nobody can tax you on that really right now, and that's what we want to kind of position ourselves as. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up another return. Hopefully I can do this right as I scroll back. Google Drive. Here we go. So tax returns. I go back too far as I always do. Let's go ahead and take another look at this one. Different one here. Another older one. High income, high dividends, not much capital gains. So this is different, right? More real estate here more than likely. But when you see, this is a different one, right? When you see dividends and no cap gains, what does that mean? Same conversation, though. What are you doing with the dividends? Are you reinvesting those just to pay taxes again, right? Same conversation. But now this guy probably owns individual stocks, right? When you see dividends and no capital gains, it's probably because he owns individual stocks. And he's got a DRIP plan going on, which is dividend reinvestment plan. But he's probably not living off of it. He may be living off of it, but highly unlikely just because this guy's got so much income right now, right? So he's got some individual stocks, which means he's got some money management, or he's a more sophisticated investor, or maybe he inherited some stocks, and the stocks are just sitting there, right? But this is a really good conversation. We're going to shift this one. High itemized deductions, so he's still able to capture a bunch of tax benefit. All good. High income, all good. I'm trying to make sure I whited everything. I didn't whited everything out. Overpaid, refunded you, amount you owe. Okay, so this guy owes. All right. And whenever you see guys owing, it's because their income's too high. They don't have enough withholdings. Obviously, there's no withholdings for the extra dividends in here. So we can help him. We can help this guy right now. Right. So if you have a stock portfolio that's throwing off a bunch of dividends, it's creating some tax inefficiencies. The guy's in the high income bracket. What is our natural solution right here? You can all say it at once, or you can all think it at once, right? Charitable trust. And of course, I've got my charitable trust calculator. I'll just pop it up right now. I don't know how old this guy is, but let's say we'll go ahead and do a quick calculation. All right, let's say he's got, let's say I want to get him $100,000 of tax benefits. If I want to get him $100,000 of tax benefits, he's probably got, I don't know how much money he's got in here, his stock portfolio, but he's probably got a decent amount. Let's do $200,000, right, at 5% payment rate. I got an older client in here. Let's do it a 70-year-old, right? All right, let's just take a look at this guy. I can get him, and this was what I was just trying to estimate here, I can get him about $100,000 in tax benefits, right, from a $200,000 charitable trust. So if this is a stock portfolio, what you'll see here is you'll see income coming out. And, of course, he probably has more than $200,000 in stocks. But if I've got a $200,000 portfolio, you'll see that we have $10,000 a year of income coming from this trust, right? If we sold some stocks to come in here, maybe he's got a low basis because he inherited the money or he's had the money for a long time and he's been hesitant to reposition his stocks because the basis is so low. Of course, putting the stocks inside the charitable trust, the trust can sell the stocks and avoid that capital gains tax event, right? But then on top of that, we are now creating a deduction. So the cool thing about this is a 5-year carry forward, right? And that's why I wanted to find $100,000 a year of deductions for this guy. So I can create $25,000 of deductions for him for 4 years, or $20,000 a year of deductions for him for 5 years. So number one, we can stop this from happening, right, by moving the stocks into the trust. And number two, we can now create $20,000 to $25,000 of additional deductions for this guy, which he can capture, right? Because we looked at this guy's, at least for right now, right? He's got enough itemized deductions to capture any additional tax benefit that we're going to do for him, right? So he'll be able to see every dollar benefit of these things for the next 4 or 5 years. He's going to love this. He's not going to have to write a check for taxes anymore. And we can do this every 5 years. So we're really creating an ongoing strategy that he might really, really like, right? So you can see how the tax return review turns into an idea, turns into a strategy, turns into credibility. And, of course, very, very seldom is the guy going to ask, oh, well, where's this money going to be invested, right? He's just going to give it to you, and you're going to do whatever you want with it, typically, right? But this is really a tax discussion. So the 5-year carry forward is important, the $10,000 of income, which he probably doesn't even need. You know, you can buy insurance with that. You can use it to fund whatever else you want to fund or gift it or save it, whatever. That's all great. And you can build a strategy ongoing so that you can get him to not have to pay or write a check for taxes every year. So this is value add immediately, right? You can save this guy money tax-wise today, which I think that these guys really, really like. Okay? So let's go ahead and pull up another one. And I think, you know, these are similar, but they're different, right? Similar, but they're different. Let's see if this one is similar but different again. Business income. This guy's self-employed, owns a company. You know, so I see immediately that he's self-employed because I see business income on here. And, of course, he'll have a SEP going on down here and some self-employment. Probably one spouse has a regular W-2 job and the other spouse is self-employed, which is always good information. Going down in the future, too, when we do our case studies, I'm going to show you guys the tax returns, and I'm going to match them up with a model. So you can see what the model is on the actual tax return and how we plan out the case and how we position the products and and how to, make the sale and all that kind of jazz. Still some extra rental real estate income or S corporation partnership, a little bit of an IRA distribution. It's a small amount, may lead me to believe that this guy's a little bit older. Not old enough for Social Security yet, so this is not an RMD, right? If this was an RMD on IRA distribution, you would have seen some Social Security benefits coming out. So I don't know why this happened. Maybe he needs the money, who knows? And of course, like I said, they're self-employed. Above the standard deductions for couples still. Don't get these exemptions anymore. Those are long gone, right? Self-employment tax. Anything else I can see on here? Total payments. Gosh, another guy that owes. Right? And here's the occupation is risk manager and real estate appraiser here. So, what I would basically say to you guys is, if you think that there's an opportunity to, maybe create some more tax sheltering through his business, I would definitely jump on that. You could go complicated and do defined benefit pensions if you wanted to. I really like business-owned life insurance, but you really can decide how you want to position it. But there's a bunch of different ways we can reduce this guy's income. Hopefully he's doing Roth, right? He doesn't make too much money to do Roth. He can still do Roth. In fact, I can go to my tax guide, right, and say, all right, well, if I'm going to do a Roth IRA, what is my maximum income that I can make, right? So as a married couple, IRA contribution, participants in employer plans. Here we go, non-participants. So yeah, as a married couple, they can make roughly $200,000 a year and still put into a Roth, right? Right here. So hopefully they're doing the Roth. If not, I definitely want them to start thinking about it. And we want to do more tax sheltering than just the Roth. We want to be doing the Roth, and we also want to be doing hopefully some tax sheltering and some insurance as well. This couple, they don't have a ton of money, but you can make a huge difference in their life, right? Because it's funny, you take a couple like this, and they're essentially in the same tax bracket as the other couple we were looking at that was making $300,000 a year, right? At $1.50, they're like in the same tax bracket. As long as they're making over $77,000, anywhere between 77 to 300 and something is essentially the same tax bracket. So even though these guys don't have as much money, it's almost more important that we help them and give them some strategy. So they'll really appreciate it. Whatever money they do have, it'll become yours. I don't see a charitable trust here just on the tax return. I might see it if this guy wants to exit some real estate. Just like the previous example where you can exit the stock market or sell stocks in the trust and avoid the capital gains tax, obviously we know we should be able to do that with real estate also. The real estate can go into the trust, avoid the capital gains tax, give them extra income. The other calculation I'll do a lot of times is I'll say to them, hey, you've got a $400,000 house here that's a rental property and it's generating $1,500 a month, and I do that all the time. Right. Well, that's $18,000 a year on $400,000. I know at 5%, I can get them probably $20,000 a year. So, would it be better for them to sell the real estate, get the 5% from the trust, which is $20,000 a year, not have to deal with overhead expenses, being a landlord, all that stuff? Absolutely. Right. If you show somebody right now, you're paying taxes, you're paying expenses, you're getting $18,000 a month in rent. $18,000 a year in rent on your $400,000 house. We could sell that $400,000 house, not have to deal with the rents anymore, not have to pay with real estate taxes, not be a landlord, and get $20,000 a year. That light bulb might go off on their head. That might be a no-brainer for them. Right. So that's where these conversations lead. And again, these types of conversations they really haven't had with too many people before. I wonder if this is the second page. I'm not really sure what this is. So anyway, we got a lot of different tax return possibilities here to talk about. We've done a few case studies now. I want to go over some of these actual models for you that will allow us to match up the tax returns in the models, and then we can go through the entire case study with you. If you haven't really taken the time to navigate, I'm going to show you our model calculators. If you hadn't had the time to navigate our calculators, they're not as detailed, but they're really simple because they really show this this sort of total tax bracket right here and the marginal rate, so you can show people how to calculate that. It's really beneficial. It's got a decent amount of summary here, capital gains tax, estate taxes, but not nearly as much as this table here, the tax guide that I came up with that I Googled. So I would suggest that you guys Google these tax guides and hand them out whenever you do a workshop or a talk, if you're doing workshops or talks. Hand out the reference guides. Because again, think about it. If you're handing them out a tax reference guide and you're explaining to them how taxes work, you don't have to tell them that you're a CPA. Or in fact, you say, I'm not a CPA. I'm not an enrolled agent. But they're naturally going to gravitate towards you for tax strategy because you're the one who's teaching them this stuff, right? And I always tell people I've got CPAs on my staff and I've got enrolled agents on my staff, but I focus more on the tax strategy because a lot of times, we find that our clients, whoever their tax person is just simply preparing their documents, not really introducing them to ways to save money on taxes. And not through any fault of their own, it's just not what they're wired for. They're wired for submitting documents on your behalf and filling out paperwork and getting them done for you, but they're not wired for tax harvesting. They're not wired for Roth converting. They're not wired for charitable trusts. Seldom, if ever, will the tax people that are preparing, whether it's H&R Block or whether it's a CPA, these guys just don't do tax strategies. It's so seldom. And so when we do and we focus our attention on these things, we can get so much credibility. In the discussion about the taxes when it comes to estate and gift taxes, I would definitely bring up the Secure Act, right? There's some really cool strategies. I'm not going to go over them today, but you can get the gist of these when you think about, well, if I can create a strategy where maybe every other year I can do a charitable trust strategy where every other year I create deductions for somebody or lower their income taxes somehow, I can reduce the Medicare surtax and I can reduce taxes on Social Security. Some people are in a situation where there will be enough ways to shelter or take money out of a tax-free account like life insurance or Roth rather than from the IRA in certain years. If you can alternate strategies and give people different buckets of money to draw from, you can effectively control their taxes. And by doing that, you can create a ripple effect of benefit on taxes on Social Security, on taxes on Medicare, and all these other types of things. So the ripple effect is powerful, guys. And the tax conversation is really powerful, and it's really quite simple. You can practice it. You can look at all their stuff ahead of time so you can know what they're going to talk about. You can learn how to read their tax returns blind. It's a really fun exercise. People are engaging in it. Everybody wants to talk about tax savings. I think it really gives you a great opportunity. All right? So hopefully this conversation was helpful, and then we will move into case studies and case designs that will marry the actual returns with the models, and we'll go over some of those. All right, great. Thank you guys very much.